So good afternoon and welcome to VCU Center on Transition Innovations presentation on partnerships for providing enhanced virtual transition services in Virginia. My name is Judy Averill and I'm with the Center on Transition Innovations. And I'm joined today by my colleagues, Martin Kurylowski with Virginia's Department for Aging and Rehabilitative Services and Marianne Moore with Virginia Department of Education. I'd like to take a quick poll to see who's on the call today. It's nice to get a sense of participants' roles and transition. So if you don't mind taking a few seconds. Just, keep on voting. I'll give you just a couple more seconds. Keeping our fingers crossed that this works. Okay, let's see what we got. I can't see anything on my end, so, oh yeah, are you able to see the results? Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
Wow. It's really, looks like we have a really good balance between educators and VR, which is wonderful. We have some school administrators, great to see higher ed, and some state agency representatives. Thank you all. I know we have a very large group of our Georgia friends online today, so thank you for joining us. This just gives us a really good opportunity to see who has an interest in this presentation and who we have. So let's get started. And unfortunately, the last 6 months have been very difficult, and our current situation has brought significant changes in education and how we support and provide instruction to all of our students. And our focus is in the transition world, and we must continue. We must continue to provide those effective transition services, and I know it's a challenge, finding ways to continue with the continuum of services that are coordinated and innovative to meet individual student needs. So we're all learning together. No one can do this alone, and it's important more than ever that we maintain strong partnerships with families, educators, VR, and other community partners so we can share ideas and resources and information to move students closer to reaching their annual and post-school goals. Every cloud has a silver lining, and we have to look for that. And there's good that's going to come out of this, and we need to take the opportunity to join forces and reflect what is and what is not working. I think we can strengthen what we're doing to assist students. We can find those really good strategies, and there's no doubt that we're going to continue to fill our tool belts with those effective practices. So today, we're going to talk briefly, review the secondary transition expectations. Martin's going to provide us some examples of innovative strategies and methods to support students' skill attainment. We're also going to highlight some high-quality resources and tools to assist you in providing transition services, whether those services are virtual, hybrid, or face-to-face. We know that you receive a lot of emails, a lot of information on tools and resources. I just want to point out that the resources that we're going to highlight today, it's informational purposes only, and this is not an endorsement on our part. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Marianne, who's briefly going to discuss secondary transition expectations during COVID.
We all do our work within a context of influencers. For special education staff, that means we have a federal law for education, ESSA, and we have IDEA. We have to figure out how the two can align, how we work together to implement both. We also have Virginia standards, or the profile of a Virginia graduate. That also has to be fitted into the work that we do. We focus on work-based learning, but we also have to realize we're an employment first state. So what does work-based learning, ESSA, IDEA, and the profile of a Virginia graduate, can we make those align? There's also Perkins 5. So when we deal with career and technical education, we know that we also, again, are working with employment first and how that looks. As educators, we have some mandates through WIOA in Section 11. That would be not having contracts with companies that provide sheltered work. And we have some reporting requirements. WIOA also addresses pre-eds. So there's another additional layer that we add into the work that we do. Then there are local pieces that we have to consider, the economy and customs. In Virginia, we have some divisions where the biggest employer is education. Once we think we have it all together and we figured this piece of this amazing puzzle out, there's always something that comes along, and that's why I threw the joker in. This year, we've had COVID-19 to deal with and a lot of civil unrest due to national spotlight on equity. I say all this not to terrify you, but to recognize the importance and the role you all play in preparing a generation of workers, parents, community members, voters, and leaders. IDEA has not changed. There's no amendment to secondary transition expectations. OSEP and USED have not provided exceptions to the requirements for reporting. And I laid out indicator 13 and 14. Of course, indicator 13 is compliance, 14 is our post-school outcomes. But remember, we also have those graduation requirements. That would be indicator 1, and indicator 2 are dropout numbers. So those are all our indicators in education, and they have not changed. So we still have to figure out how we do age-appropriate transition assessments, whether we're face-to-face or whether we're virtual. And we know that our partners at DARS may look at the term assessment a little differently than we do in education. We sometimes look at less formal assessments, not standardized, although we have those as well. It's important to have a student voice when we're developing that IEP or those transition components. And it can be a real challenge to find youth who are connected, and we can get that voice. We're developing annual goals, both academic and functional, that support the student's movement from school to post-school. Transition services and supports is one area, while we're required to do it, and it is a challenge virtually, it is our greatest opportunity to collaborate. And again, we're always looking at how what we're doing is supporting that young person to move from being a student in school in K-12 system to moving to adulthood and post-secondary goals. We're still required to provide meeting notice to a student. And we know during this time, students have moved and not left forwarding addresses. They may not have cell phones anymore, or they've changed their cell phone number a couple of times. They might not have internet connection. So it is a real concern, but it's also, again, an opportunity how we learn to do things very differently. Again, that idea of meeting notice, the age of majority, we have to consider that and all that goes with that, and how difficult that might be for a parent to understand, well, to get the information and then understand the complexities of making those decisions. And also talking about supportive decision making. It's not always that the parent becomes a guardian or not. There's other layers that have to be considered. When we want to have an agency involved in an IEP meeting, we have to have prior consent from the parent or age of majority student, or sometimes both. So there's a lot of complexities that have not changed for us, but they've just been made a little more difficult or force us to put on that thinking cap as we begin to plan and follow our laws.
Hi, everybody. So a core tenet of Title IV of the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act is that individuals with disabilities, including youth and individuals with the most significant disabilities, represent a vital and an integral part of our society. One of the primary roles of state VR agencies is to empower individuals with disabilities, including students and youth with disabilities, to make informed choices about their careers by providing a continuum of services to assist them with achieving employment outcomes in competitive integrated employment or supported employment. Students and youth with disabilities receive a broad range of services under the VR program in group settings or an individual basis as appropriate. The services available will differ from person to person because they are customized for each individual's needs. Certain VR services called pre-employment transition services, or as you'll hear me call it, PREETs, are available to students with disabilities regardless of whether or not they have applied for VR services. But these same services are not available to youth with disabilities who do not meet this definition of a student with a disability under the Rehab Act. So WIOA mandates that state VR agencies spend 15% of their federal VR grant funds on the provision of PREETs to students with disabilities who are potentially eligible or eligible for the VR program. This requirement has not changed, and this requirement expands the population of students who may receive services and the breadth of services DARS may provide. So central to the transition planning process and the landscape that we are currently in is collaborative partnerships and coordination between school divisions, families, the State Vocational Rehabilitation Agency, and other transition partners. We recognize that at the state and local level, our agencies share a responsibility to ensure students with disabilities receive the effective transition service planning and delivery, beginning with pre-employment transition services. For this reason, we have existing state and local cooperative agreements between VR and education agencies to define how we work together to accomplish that objective. Furthermore, during this time of the pandemic, we have worked with our state education partners to send a memo to all local school division superintendents to remind them that, especially in these unusual and uncertain times, that we have an integral role, both of us do, in coordinating transition services and activities for students with disabilities. Our goal with this memo was just to remind everybody that we really need to have a strong partnership so that we're enhancing and supplementing transition services, not duplicating them, that we're facilitating a seamless transition process for students, beginning with the early referrals to agencies like DARS for them to begin receiving pre-employment transition services. And that our counselors are available to attend IEP meetings, to assist in that transition planning and to share critical information about our agency and opportunities that exist for students. And we're available to communicate about ongoing updates on student activities that are occurring with our agency and our partners. So altogether, we're working collaboratively, especially during this time, to serve students in a flexible manner, both in person and remotely where necessary. So just to preface this next section where we're going to share some resources, prior to COVID, our operations primarily consisted of in-person service planning, coordination, and delivery in conjunction with our transition stakeholder partners, most importantly, students, families, and our education partners. So since COVID, needless to say, we've been working overtime collectively to modify our existing service delivery model by adapting existing technology and resources, as well as identifying new technologies and resources that can help us to provide the same quality of services to students without risking the health and safety of staff, clients, and the general public. This has been a time of significant changes to meet the present challenges, but we believe that our operations will be permanently changed in ways that will allow us to more effectively serve a broader student population together with our education partners. So in this section, we're going to talk about some of these transition services that we traditionally provide and try to share a few examples of how we've been doing that since the pandemic. And please keep in mind that students may participate in a number of transition services through both VR and education, as well as other transition service providers. And these services might be in group or individual settings, in person or remote. Importantly, these are all activities being done in close coordination and collaboration between these partners to ensure a seamless transition experience for students and families. So let's begin with job exploration. Job exploration can include a wide variety of activities which support students to learn about career pathways, in-demand industries and occupations, the labor market, non-traditional employment options, and their career interests. Exploration also serves to foster motivation and increases students' awareness of the relevance of high school and post-school educations to their vocational future. Some typical activities or some innovative practices or strategies that we've been doing during this time to help students explore careers is doing things like helping them to develop digital career portfolios, which can be done remotely. Virtual scavenger hunts, where students are given an assignment to explore virtual resources online that help them to find key information about careers. Inviting virtual panel of local employers and career speakers, which can all be done through Zoom or other platforms where we are holding virtual meetings. But then also a good strategy is just kind of trying to align services that we're providing within a student's daily routine or schedule or environment. So if we know some information about what a student's plans are typically for a day, then it's something we can do is plan career exploration activities around things that they might have naturally occurring in their schedule. So we wanted to highlight a couple of resources for you to be able to take away from today. And the first one is, Judy is going to talk about this one.
Yeah, as Martin said, that this really is a great time to develop career portfolios for our students. You know, to have those really rich discussions and just start gathering that information so the students can start seeing and really enhancing their knowledge of their strengths and their preferences, interests, and skills. So one resource I wanted to highlight was T-Folio. If you haven't had an opportunity, you may want to check out this tool. It's free, interactive, and it's online, obviously. It's for high school youth with disabilities, created by the Center for Change and Transition and the Division of Voc Rehab. And this resource provides a series of exercises that focuses on building self-determination and job readiness skills. So what I really like about this tool is that it is student-centered and emphasizes the student's role as a leader in setting and achieving goals. So to get an opportunity, I would definitely check it out. Martin?
So in a lot of ways, we're not doing anything new. We're just kind of delivering the service in a different way. So My Next Move has been a popular resource at our agency for some time to assist students with their own individual career exploration. And it translates really perfectly to the virtual environment that we're in right now. So students can easily, from the comfort of their home, do their career exploration on this website based around the completion of their O-Net Career Interest Profiler, which identifies their Holland's code, whether they're more realistic or investigative, those sort of things, and connects that to careers that they can then explore. What are the skills, the education requirements, the wages and labor market information that particular occupation requires. So it's a great resource, and our staff have been developing just really good guidance and visuals to support students with doing career exploration using My Next Move, so that we don't have to be there in person with them to do that. So work-based learning experiences, our agency supports students to further explore the world of work and various occupations and career pathways, and provides opportunities for students to practice and improve workplace skills. Students use the workplace to gain knowledge and skills that connect school experiences to career opportunities. Some typical work-based learning experiences are things like informational interviews, workplace tours, job shadowing, employer mentoring, simulated workplace experiences, volunteering, internships, and paid and non-paid community work experiences. During this time, this is an area where we've had to particularly think creatively about how we can create work-based learning experiences, which are typically a more experiential and in-person and hands-on type of activity for students. So figuring out how to do that remotely has required some creativity because they may not be able to shadow or complete face-to-face internships, but we still need to make sure that we're assisting them with making professional connections and gaining career advice and experience. So some examples of work-based learning strategies that we'll share, virtual workplace tours and job shadowing has been pretty popular, and conducting informational interviews with employers or employees within a particular career pathway through a platform like Zoom has been a pretty popular option. And Marianne was going to share about some of the resources available for work-based learning through Virginia's CTE and virtual job shadow.
Well, if you don't mind, excuse me. I'd like to chime in real quickly. There's some really good examples that I've heard of, especially around work-based learning. As you said, it's we have to really think creatively. There are a lot of businesses out there who really want to assist right now and partner with schools and youth. So virtual mentoring can be very powerful right now. Of identifying those businesses that really want have employees that really want to work and partner. So I highly suggest for the education folks out there, talk with your CTE colleagues and about some of their community partnerships and businesses, and maybe they can make connections. You can already have some connections that they already have. But, I want to briefly share, we have VCU has ACE in College program, which is a comprehensive transition program for students with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And they've been doing a lot of different work-based learning and paid employment experiences. In fact, everyone is currently working. But virtual interviews, informational interviews with is one that they were doing out in the community. And we had a gentleman who, along with support staff, created questions. And then when it was time for the interview, it was a Zoom interview, the student shared their screen and went through the questions with the employer. And one, it demonstrated to the employer how much the student put into ahead of time. And it also showcased the student's technology skills. And actually, because of this informational interview, their employer reached out and hired this student. So, and internships, paid, unpaid, absolutely possible for our youth. Again, it takes time, creativity, thinking outside of the box, and really seeking out the business needs. We have a young man who just secured his first job in customer service, working with clients virtually through with phone and email. He maintains a log to record service needs and client interactions and gaps in services. So we also have another young lady who's working from home for a department within actually the university, who's checking in on students on the completion of their daily health survey. So there are businesses out there who they're dealing with additional tasks that may have to be completed, and it takes some, a lot of phone calls and emails. But I think the number one key is to find out what are those business needs, and we can provide some of these work-based learning experiences virtually. Sorry, Marianne, I didn't mean to.
Yeah, but if you're from, why don't you go back to that slide, the last slide, for a minute, please. Yeah, if you're from Virginia, you know that part of our standards are developing career portfolios for elementary students, and also developing that academic and career plan. As we do that, we're looking at a lot of resources, but one of our best resources we have in Virginia is our CTE department. They've developed a work-based learning guide that's recognized nationally. And they also contribute to our CTE Resource Center, which is where all CTE courses are kept. The content, the objectives, a grading system, all the resources you need to teach that. And it's also aligned, it also aligns those courses with resources and the certification tests and the company. So teachers don't have to go to 6 different places to get information anymore. They can go to one place. So that's a real positive, I think. And obviously it's all virtual, so that also helps. One of the resources that both DARS and DOE have invested in is virtual job shadow. And that's sort of a one-stop shop. There are hundreds of videos that show real people doing their real work, but the videos are not long, they're short. They're followed by about 5 questions that helps a teacher gauge whether or not students have been paying any attention. Through this website, all those connections to the One Stop and ONET are available. So again, students don't have to go outside of the program and click on another link. It's all right there. You can also develop lessons that are unique to your student, unique to your division. It's accessible, the website is. They really meet our standards in Virginia for developing that elementary portfolio, because we also have Virtual Job Shadow Junior. And it assists again with developing that academic and career plan. It also has a feature where students can look at internships. They're not always just in your state, they might be in other states, and also job opportunities. So it's a great resource. And in Virginia, we have purchased enough, I think between DARS and DOE, we have enough that really every student could have an opportunity to develop their portfolio or academic and career plan or components of it on this site. And we have, like I said, have purchased enough subscriptions, and we've also purchased subscriptions for the elementary programs, which we encourage that to be done in collaboration with the school counselor. And also if the students are in general education classes, we don't want them to be pulled out to do this. We would rather give all the kids in that classroom an opportunity to use virtual job shadow along with their peer who might have an IEP or a 504 plan, rather than pull any student out of class. Go to the next slide.
Okay. So I agree, virtual job shadow is a great tool, and it looks like the chat room was lighting up with people singing its praises. So if you haven't heard of virtual job shadow, get on it. Career One Stop is another resource that's great. Similar to virtual job shadow, has a lot of videos that students can kind of get a little bit of that visual experience of what particular jobs are like and what some of the skill requirements are and education requirements are for those jobs. So I don't want to spend too much time on this resource, but check out career one-stop. And it'll be in the resources for this presentation. So an important part of transition planning is for students to develop awareness of the range of post-secondary educational and occupational training opportunities and resources that are accessible to them and which can help them to pursue a desired career pathway. So some typical activities that we do is just providing information and guidance to students on a variety of those education and training opportunities, helping them to understand academic accommodations and services that they might receive both in the secondary and post-secondary level, connecting them to post-secondary education and training resources and websites, helping them to understand financial aid options and how to complete financial aid applications, and supporting them to attend college or vocational training program fairs or tours. During these times, we've been providing a lot of this type of guidance remotely and attempting to leverage resources from our education and training providers and enable students to learn more about their programs. So this sort of stuff includes things like virtual campus tours, inviting speakers like disability resource coordinators who can share, present information to students remotely, or having virtual scavenger hunts for students to identify important information about these education and training programs through their websites, like admission requirements and different curriculum that they have for the various careers. So Judy is going to talk about another resource that's widely used to support students in this area. So I'm going to pass it off to Judy.
And Martin, one of the best ways for students to prepare and determine whether a school is that right fit for them is to visit college campuses. And due to COVID, many colleges and universities have created virtual campus tours. And I can't emphasize enough, this is a great activity for students and youth. SHEV, which is the State Council of Higher Education for Virginia, actually has a college campus tours for every college and university in Virginia. So if you haven't checked out that website, that's a great activity for students. But another one, and I'm very partial to get ready for college, this is a resource that we have at the Center on Transition Innovations. It's very popular and it's a really good resource for students, teachers, and families. And it's free. It's a series of online lessons, 8 in total, each focusing on a different aspect of the college preparation, selection, and disability services process. And these online lessons contain engaging video presentations, 2 or 3 per lesson. They're about 5 to 7, 10 minutes long at the most. And resources that you can use to equip students and others with the knowledge and skills that they need. And even making, if college is a decision for them, if that's a path, if they're a route they're going to take to employment. But what makes this really nice, I think, is that students can complete these modules on their own, or educators and counselors, families can facilitate the students or even a group of students, and that's become a very popular method. So, and I'm going to put a plug in. I also am very excited to, we're going to roll out our second student course in about 3 weeks actually, and it's Get Ready for Your Career. Same type of format where there are online modules, and we're going to have 4, and it really, course is going to walk the students through the career planning process. There's 4 lessons that each contain 2 video presentations that will walk them through career assessment, career exploration, education and training paths to reach their goals, social networks, and action planning. So be out on the lookout in about 3 weeks.
Yeah. Before you go to the next slide, I'd get thrown off the island if I didn't also acknowledge that both of our TIPSID sites, ACIT in College and Mason Life, plus DARS and other agencies, including DOE, and Higher Ed, form a committee that actually does have some influence, and it's access to higher education. And on that committee, we really, and we have students on that committee as well. I mean, service receivers, not just providers. And one of the things that we do talk about is, again, like I said, some of the issues of equity that people with disabilities have to higher ed. That access, that committee Access to Higher Ed actually testifies before our legislators every year, and they have the ability to request some funding. They also provide this wonderful grant called Gear Up. I'm sure it's a federal grant, and I'm sure many states other states utilize Gear Up grants, and they go to communities that maybe have low numbers of youngsters going on to higher ed, and they provide lots of resources and access to actually getting on a campus and understanding the Disability Services Office or the Access Office. So this year we actually, not through the Gear Up grants, but through our Virginia Wizard, which is a resource in Virginia, have a lot of information that deals with disability services and disability issues. So that's been really helpful to those in Virginia.
So the goal of workplace readiness training activities is to support students in preparing for adult life and their development of commonly expected skills that employers seek from most employees. Some of the most important skills that students are going to need are their job seeking, social, and independent living skills. So during these times of operational changes, we've been doing a lot of these services remotely, I think with great success. A benefit of doing services virtually, like I said before, is that we can interact with students in their natural home environments in ways that we didn't before, and try to integrate some of our services into their daily life. And so it's a little different thing when you're working with a student and they're actually sitting in their home and you want to work on independent living skills. It opens up some opportunities that we didn't have before that are interesting and maybe exciting. Like you can walk them through setting their alarm or identifying proper interview attire for those job seeking skills. So it's exciting times to be creative in the work that we're doing. And Judy's going to share a couple of other really good resources.
Yeah, I think with workplace readiness training, again, we want to look at, really good opportunities in authentic environments. So if one resource that's very new out of our center is CTI's Workplace Readiness Skills Toolkit. And we developed this over the last several months because we knew there's a need for students who require some extensive supports to increase, obviously, these essential skills in preparing for employment. And we wanted to really enhance the partnership between schools and families to prepare for employment so they can continue to increase their skills, especially within the home. So it's been well received. Actually, I was just looking at the numbers today. Within just a little bit over a month, we've had 6,600 downloads. But this tool provides a framework for teachers to partner with the families to reinforce these skills that have already been taught in school. So it's about reinforcing within the home environment and even the community environment. And we have activity sheets that focuses on one specific workplace readiness skill. And in Virginia, we have 22 workplace readiness skills, but we selected 18 for this toolkit. So it can be easily adapted where you focus on one skill a week, or you could take several weeks depending on the students' the opportunities within the home. But each skill builds upon the next and should continue to be reinforced. So we're very excited about that. I think there's another resource that is prior to this one that you may want to check out. It's Global GCF Global Learning. And I'm just going to briefly say that, you know what, this is an extensive resource. It has over 200 topics, more than 7,000 lessons, and 1,000 videos. But I'm just going to throw out some of the lesson topics that are interactive. Workplace basics, basic math, computer training, career planning, tutorials on how to use your smartphones and tablets, which is very critical right now. How to complete I-9 and W-4 forms. Tutorials on dealing with stress and anger, being a good digital citizen, which is extremely important right now. This is a good time to really develop activities and practice those skills. Email violations, job success. So check it out. Martin, back to you.
So self-advocacy instruction is, it involves supporting students with the development of effective communication and decision-making skills with an emphasis on self-determination. With these services, students are supported with learning how to effectively communicate their needs and direct their life. Some examples of these activities traditionally include teaching students how to become self-aware, disclose their disability, request accommodations, effectively express their wants and needs, accepting feedback and understanding their rights and responsibilities, setting goals and problem solving. You know, especially during these times, we have to get creative doing these things virtually or remotely, and that has certainly been a challenge, especially in a time where students are overwhelmed with changes and information. And I really don't know why I had this slide, because Marianne Moore is our guru on self-determination. So she's going to share about I'm Determined, which is a really great resource for many of our students across the Commonwealth to improve their abilities in these areas. So, Marianne.
Okay. Well, as you know, self-determination requires many, many sub-skills. And so part of our work with this site has been to develop templates that teachers, parents, and students can use, school administrators sometimes use, they're very user-friendly. To help the student know about themselves and be able to communicate that, because we want students to be involved in their IEP. We want them to be involved and communicate with the school counselor when they're developing a portfolio or their academic and career plan. So knowing yourself is a big component of this. We also have a template that's great on how to set goals, but not just to set goals, but then to look at the steps I need to follow to get to those goals. And that involves some decision making, and which is a more complex, or those are more complex skills. And we also have one that is called a good day plan, but it really helps students do some problem solving. So what does it take for you to be successful today, and who can help you? And so those are some of the templates we have, but we also have videos that accompany the templates. Everything on that site is free. We also have added that transition guide for families. So it might say at age 12, here's some things you can do with your student, and here are some resources that are specific to either federal or national. Anyway, like I said, everything on that site is free. We also house some family engagement resources. And the best one, I think, is the critical decision making. There are small, again, little videos that talk about what parents can do to set their children on a path. And I think we even begin with talking about attendance, what an issue that can be, and think about how that applies to the workplace. I think you can go ahead and go to the next slide.
So given that VR and education agencies are federally mandated to provide transition services, there's a benefit for agencies, students, and families to collaborate and coordinate services together. If partners are effectively collaborating and coordinating services, students are more likely to graduate from high school, attend post-secondary training or education, and to achieve competitive integrated employment in the community. During this unprecedented time, collaboration is essential. Roles and responsibilities for transition activities need to be clearly defined so that we're supplementing and not duplicating services, and that we're creating a seamless transition process for students that we're working with so that they're reaching their post-school outcomes and goals in the most effective manner possible. So some things that we can do is have a shared vision, delineate those roles and responsibilities, collaborate and coordinate, assign responsibilities, and communicate progress on an ongoing basis. Next slide. Families play an important role in a student's transition because they are most often that student's greatest resource or greatest source of natural support to reaching their goals. Families also have a tremendous amount of information and resources to contribute to that young person's planning process, which can help us to ensure that we are doing high quality planning early in their transition journey. It's important that families and caregivers supporting a youth transition have agreed upon roles and responsibilities within their young person's transition team. Especially during these times, families are overwhelmed and may need to communicate that to a student's VR and education staff so that we can be sure that we aren't placing unnecessary burden on them. Our partnership is enhanced when families and transition stakeholders are communicating proactively, including providing feedback on services and jointly planning for progress towards a student's post-school goals. And Marianne, you're going to add about some of the resources that Department of Education has for families.
Thanks, Martin. Yeah, we have 2 units actually at BDOE that work on family engagement. And we also have a military liaison because in Virginia we have a high number of military families. And it is a compassionate assignment. So if that family has a member who has a disability, then they can request to be stationed someplace in Virginia. That's all I wanted to say, is make you aware that we have these 2 units and that we also have a military liaison.
So we're also in the business of working with businesses. During this time, we have to remember as a state VR agency, as an education agency, from a workforce development and economic perspective, that we rely on our community's businesses to provide learning and employment opportunities to our transitioning students. But they've been struggling with the impact of COVID as well. So this has been a time where we especially are being mindful of how they've been impacted and really paying attention to whether it is a good time or a bad time to engage with them. So going back to what Judy said, are there still opportunities to work with them? In a lot of ways, there are great opportunities to work with them, but some businesses are a little bit more hesitant to work with folks right now. So that said, I think when we're doing our jobs well, businesses continue to see it as an asset to continue working with students, even during these uncertain or difficult times. I want to highlight a great example of partnership and Project Search, which is a transition program that we have across the Commonwealth, about 20 programs in total, that models kind of the partnerships and service delivery that we've been talking about today, which focuses around collaboration, teamwork, and a focus on serving students and businesses. Project Search is a 1-year transition program where 8 to 12 students in their final year of school participate in 3 10-week internships within a host business before being supported by a job coach in permanent, competitive, integrated employment. Our state has had programs for over 10 years, most of them hosted in hospitals of all places, which would be the busiest place during the pandemic. A cornerstone of these programs, however, has been close partnership, planning, and coordination between our agency and our education partners and our employment service organizations who hire the skills trainers and job coaches, students and families, and our businesses. The strength of our programs are these formed partnerships which focus on the business's needs first and maintaining an ongoing communication with businesses. Doing this all during the pandemic with a focus on the safety and health of everyone has resulted in a majority of businesses having the confidence to welcome our students back for in-person experiences this semester. And in places where we were unable to return to the host business at the beginning of this school year, typically due to the education reopening plan and just not being ready to have students going back in person, our teams are partnering closely, building on that foundation of collaboration that we had before the pandemic, to provide transition services to students that will parallel the experience they would have had through a typical project search school year. And Judy, did you want to share about Start on Success?
Yeah, I think it's important to note that these models that we have in Virginia, we've learned some really, really valuable lessons, and how various stakeholders can work real closely together to assist students in reaching some really their outcomes, their intended outcomes. One, it's student-centered. Two, communication is ongoing. And as difficult as that can be at times with workloads, but just communicating on students' progress, communicating on student needs, and where everyone together works to, and in various different settings, in the school and in the business and at home, and family engagement and I think most importantly is, like Martin said, is understanding roles. We're all doing the same thing. We want to work more efficiently so we can be more effective, and that we complement, which will then get students closer. So I think those lessons and those components of the programs is something we need to always have in the back of our minds, because it works. We have years of data on student outcomes, and it works. So that's it.
So during this time, we especially have to be focused on addressing equity and access for all students with disabilities. And so with this school year being a little different, how do we ensure that equity and access for all students? We know that there are a variety of barriers that students may experience that could affect their ability to participate in and benefit from transition services in a virtual or remote setting. Things like not having technology to access virtual services. It could be due to disability-related barriers. Could be due to a lack of internet or data availability, and so on. So what we've been doing, our agency in particular, and I know our partners as well, we've been just training and trying to build up our awareness and knowledge of what some of these barriers are, and how we can handle them and address them when we recognize them. I think our people are our greatest resource at all of our agencies. So that's number one, is making sure that we're empowered with training and techniques, but also trying out different platforms and really exploring them for their functions and features that can make them more accessible. For example, we found that Zoom is a great platform for individuals who are deaf or hard of hearing in our agency to be able to get the most from virtual services. And then also just working together with our various partners to, when a student has a need, combining our resources, whether it's manpower or technology, to support students and give them what they need, especially during this time, to access services.
Thank you, Martin. It's all about, again, I can't emphasize, and I think, our theme for today was really enhancing partnerships. And now more than ever, it is needed. We need to be empathetic. We need to be understanding of what is happening in the homes. And we need to just really look at what's best for students so we can continue to move them forward. So we've provided, hopefully, a lot of resources today. We have some additional slides too, actually, on additional resources that may assist you. Let's transition to the next slide. Just to wrap things up, because I know we've come to the end of our hour, you will receive, we're going to let you know, like Alia said in the beginning, that today's presentation can be found on our website at Center on Transition. innovations.org. You will receive a follow-up email with a link to a survey. Your feedback is very important to us. It's a short, simple survey, so please take 5 minutes to tell us what you think, thoughts, and suggestions, for future professional development opportunities. You will also receive, after you complete the evaluation, a certificate of attendance that can be downloaded. We have our email information for you. We're here to support you in meeting the transition needs of our youth. So please don't hesitate to reach out, seek out assistance, contact us if you need additional information. And we really want to thank you for joining us. And Martin and Marianne, I want to thank you for collaborating on this session. And thanks everybody, and please take care, be safe, and be well. Have a good afternoon.